You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back with a special edition episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Well, the results are in, and this one was a big one. In my over 10 years of covering elections, this race was a hot mess to the very end, and then a shocker. State Representative Chris Rabb defeated State Senator Sharif and Dr. Stanford, and he is going to be the next congressman in the 3rd Congressional District in Philadelphia. He did it. He did it. He had a lot of obstacles and was able to turn what was a massive upset for the Democratic establishment. Heads will be rolling in the next couple of days. This is big. This is big. And, you know, I'm excited. I'm excited for it because that means, one, I still got a job because, it could have got a little boring. But I got some work to do. It's going to be a very interesting political season. And 2027, this upcoming mayoral race, this upcoming city council race, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I'm already excited. There's a lot to unpack. And after every major election cycle, especially primaries, I do a special to talk about it. And we're going to talk about the big three. How did Chris Rabb do it? Where did Sharif miss the ball? And that Dr. Stanford, the spoiler, okay? I knew it. I knew she was going to come in third place. It was always going to be between Rabb and Street. But my God, on today, my goodness, you're going to see a base of people that's going to be loud and obnoxious. But everybody has their moments. You know, I get it. They're happy. They're having joy. The margin between Rabb and Sharif Street, I mean, it's in the double digits. I mean, this was a sure blowout. I don't think not over 50%, but very much so. So in many ways, one could argue that, well, if less than 50%, we don't know where those votes would have went, but damn. I mean, if he gets over 50%, which I don't think he's going to, but close to it, it shows that really he had it, right? But in a low voter turnout election, right, we're looking at roughly 25% is what they're estimating right now. A 3-person race, it happens. And I think what also this tells me too is that this is kind of the mayoral race in 2023. This reminds me of the 2023 mayoral race where the math, right? Who gonna take whose votes? And it's clear that in a race where there's 3 people, whoever brings out their base or their coalition will win. This reminds me of 2023 on the opposite end where you had 2 progressives. You had Helen, who was the more far left progressive, and you had Rebecca, who was a pragmatic progressive, and then you had a very strong centrist in Sherelle Parker. Well, in a 3-person race, Sherelle Parker had the competitive advantage. And it was 3 women, and she was a Black woman. And so there was a lot of factors, and it was very different. We was in the Biden era. But something that I know is a pattern that I've seen in elections, and I see this in elections, and people try to defy gravity. But I was saying this to someone. I was on CBS Philadelphia. Shout out. It was a great night. I got a good. Y'all like my blue suit? Y'all like my new suit? One of the things I always say to people is that there's a trend that kind of happens where after Trump wins, there's always a sway super left. We saw this in 2017 with the squad. When Trump got elected in 2016, The squad came through, boom. So it is always that type of repercussion, right? And so when I think about what happened in 2017, you saw the squad get elected. You saw Krasner get elected. Rebecca Reinhardt got elected. She beat someone in a machine, right? You saw this moving towards the left. And whenever a Democrat gets elected, you see things go a little bit more centrist. So, for example, when Biden won, you saw Eric Adams go. You saw Cheryl Parker win. Again, Trump gets elected, you see Mondani in New York. And so it's always this system where whenever you see what happens in New York, it kind of can echo in what happens in Philadelphia. And I was like, that's what has been a pattern, the trend, but you don't know until you know. Now I can safely say that is the trend. That is the pattern, which makes me say, Sherelle, you in trouble, girl. You in danger, girl. Sherelle, you in danger, girl. That's from Ghost. For those who don't know the reference, Whoopi Goldberg. I'm not just saying this it's in reference to the Ghost reference with Whoopi Goldberg. But this is serious. This is serious. Bob Brady, you got to go. It's time. It's been time. It's been long overdue. But it's official. You got to go. You got to go as the Democratic City Committee chair. Y'all got to give him his flowers. Y'all got to give him a farewell party. He got to go if you all want to do something. But Bob Brady got to go. And these very kiss the establishment folks, I don't know. I was out there. I was out covering it, and there was an energy. There was an energy in the room. There was an energy in the room. You don't know how it's going to go when it's a low voter turnout, but also when you have a very polarizing race. Voters got a chance to decide. People brought their bases out. I just know that people are going to hate Dr. Stanford for eternity. But then you got to get mad at Dwight Evans. Dwight Evans put her up first. Sharif was stubborn. He thought he can push through. But that infighting, and I always say this, anytime there's infighting within a party, that will always trigger an election result. So the progressives was fighting in 2023. They were fighting amongst each other. It was the Rebecca Reinhardt folks with the Helen Gim folks. I was seeing that shuffle. This time around, it was the Sharif folks versus the Ayla folks. They were fighting amongst each other, and they split the vote. But Rabb came out a lot stronger than what Sherelle did in her numbers. So Rabb had it. But I think Rabb got voters who was fed up. And this is not to take away from him, because I need to be very clear. He did some interesting things, and we're going to talk about him specifically. But I want to be very clear that voters that I spoke to wanted to do something very different. They wanted to do something very different in a way that they wanted to shake the table. It was that, moment that everybody was shocked about. They want that moment. This kind of reminds me, and I know this, I'm not comparing him to Trump by any means. His politics is not Trump-like, okay? But this reminds me of 2016, when Trump won. And I was like, excuse me? Who voted for him? What y'all did? There was this silent majority of folks that would typically vote for Ayla, would typically vote for a Street, but voted for Rabb in frustration. And I don't necessarily think it was because of Rabb himself. Because some people I spoke to, you're going to hear, I think more is going to come out of this when now people can take a woosah. But there were some people that were just like, they were upset with Sherelle. She lost her ward, y'all. She lost her ward. She lost her ward. She lost her ward. She lost the 50th ward. That's her ward. It's interesting because when you look at track records, Rabb has never lost an election. And mind you, it's only been a state rep races. He's never ran in different seats. So Congress was going to be a risk, right? But he never lost a seat. And the Northwest, he's been the only person that could be a major adversary. And with everything going on, I spoke to some Northwest voters because I made some calls tonight, said, what the hell went down over there? They were like, listen, this is an indictment on the rideshare taxes. This is an indictment on Chinatown. This is an indictment on a lot. This is an indictment against the current Democratic establishment. I think people, when I look at 2016, right, with the Democratic Party, people were frustrated. People wanted to see something different than what they've seen. And even if the person they supported isn't necessarily all of the things that would make a person think they're ready on day one, because let's be clear, Rabb is going to have to navigate this in a different way, right? Because the pendulum swings very differently. This is not a seat that I think will be occupied by somebody forever, because the climate can change. And I think there's a situation where you had a very interesting climate. Was Street a strong enough candidate to take on Rabb? Doesn't seem like he was the best ideal person. I mean, could have been somebody else. Dr. Stanford, she made some interesting momentum, but she just was always going to be that third candidate. She was going to be the spoiler candidate. And I was like, well, who's she going to spoil it for? And clearly, she spoiled it for Street. But in many ways, the way these votes are set up, it looks like there were people who really was going to vote for him in spite of them. And votes are very interesting because not everybody votes for people because they like a person. Because I will tell you, I've made protest votes. I made a protest vote. I'm gonna be quiet. But people make a protest vote. And they may tell you, it may look one way. But behind the scenes, when they go to that decision room and they look at that poll, they say, you know what? How do I really feel? I made it very clear. I could live with all three of these candidates, personally. I said this before, to be real with you all, that I grew up in Texas, where races were between Democrats and Republicans. I've been saying this throughout the week on different shows I've been on, that there is a luxury in Philadelphia that we can now choose what type of Democrat we want. Growing up, you didn't really choose which Democrat. This centrist, moderate, progressive, left, we didn't have that shit. They're starting to do a little bit of that in Texas, but really, it was Democrat and Republican. So sometimes when people get into these very mental details about that's just not what it is. Most American voters do not have this. This is really a coastal elite thing. I think about California, I think about New York, I think about the East Coast, and I think about specifically California in the West. That's a luxury that most voters don't have. So when people go tit for tat, you got to understand that in most states, we just be like, look, I damn sure ain't gonna vote for a Republican. Philadelphia, you get to go for what type of Democrat you want for different seats. You might say, look, I want a moderate, in the city council. I want a moderate in the mayor's office, but I want a progressive in city council. People vote like that, I mean, for me, it was at the time I did vote for Rebecca Reinhardt. I wanted somebody who was a little bit more pragmatic in the mayor's office, but for the city council races, I was like, yeah, we need some fire. Jamie Gautier, absolutely. There was a room for some fire, right? Rue Landau, there was room for a different type of Democrat in that city council representation. I mean, look what's happened because of those votes. You look at the Chinatown arena, Gautier, Rue Landau, the Working Families Party, they're not Democrats, they're Working Families Party, but Jay Young, you see those people came together to really say, you know what, we don't support this. Those are the moments where you want different type of Democrats. I think with this congressional race, the momentum we're in, the moment that we're in, I don't think there was one single issue that determined this race. And I know that some people are going to get mad and say, oh, it was the AIPAC money, it was this. Listen, that was for the base, right? That was an issue that I think rallied up the base. Rabb knows his base. That's why he got a lot of donors. When he said, fuck AIPAC, he was a true progressive. He was a true hardcore leftist, Democratic. So he leaned into his polarization, and that brought out the base that he needed. But at the same time, people also voted for Rabb. And this is what I kept saying, but I let people do what they do, is that there's other issues that was speaking to those voters. And there's certain things that they want to see a change. I think people that I know voted for Rabb because they wanted to give a middle finger to the Parker administration. They wanted to give a middle finger to the Democratic establishment. Now, Rabb is going to have to be a congressman that is going to expand upon who he engages. It cannot just be a certain type of archetype that people assess with progressives. There's going to have to be different, because this congressional district is not the same as AOC's. It's not the same as areas. You know, you could be a Jamal Bowman, and he's a black male progressive. So let's be very clear. Black progressives are very different than their other counterparts, because Cori Bush got it and lost it. Jamal Bowman got it, lost it. And this is the type of congressional district that if Rabb does not, unify and really work with different folks, he could lose it too. So have your celebrations. Everybody, this is exciting. I'm excited. This is very exciting. But don't use this as an opportunity to dunk on everybody, especially black folks. Don't dunk on black folks, because black folks will give and they will take it. And everybody's different. And so I think the reality is that I'm thinking about the political institutions. Community is very different. Community members, folks in the, it's a different kind of conversation. And so I think for me, I just want to say that. I remember when Sherelle won, and I told her people, I said, listen, it's so easy to dunk on certain types of people, I think it's interesting because I remember when they were dunking on people. Sherelle did her big one, and I was like, I don't know. That was a 3-person race. You're going to have to work with different people, and she didn't. She has not done it. Sherelle has not bridged that gap, and I think that's why she's having the problems that she's having now. She's lost momentum. 3 years ago, she won this ward. This ward was her ward. Now, her ward is voting for her arch nemesis. Chris Rabb is literally her kryptonite. And so, to many ways, for some people, a vote for Chris Rabb was a vote against Sherelle Parker, because of just how frustrated people are. And I think what it sounds like is that if you would have put Kendra Brooks in that damn race, I think the energy was insert, let me back up. A black progressive. Because that's something that I have said in 2023 when Sherelle Parker won. I told progressives, you got to do it differently. You all remember this. And some of them took those notes. Kendra, Nicholas, not everybody over there. But the secret ingredient is run black progressives. Sierra McNeil, Chris Johnson, run black progressives. Run black progressives, and you're going to have a better shot. They used to always run everybody else. I mean, clearly with the Working Families Party, but in these other races, they just never believed in black progressives. I hope this opportunity will lead, because I definitely think Chris Rabb definitely got the white vote. I think Chris Rabb largely got the white vote. When you look at these racial demographics of voters, I think there's going to be a conversation about the role that race played in the voting, right? There was 3 black candidates. I'll say, did they go for the lighter candidate? No. I think that in this situation, when I look at Helen Gim ran on a campaign that spoke about the working people and all these communities, but her votes were largely white. Sherelle had the black vote. I don't know how much of the black vote that Rabb got, but I always said that if Rabb was to win, he was going to have to get a large pocket of white voters. And I think he did. I think that really made the difference, the white vote. And I think Ayla and him probably had, I think Sharif struggled. with the white vote. He needed a strong black voter turnout, but I think Ayla cut up some of that from him, for sure. Definitely did. Now, I can only imagine black women specifically, but I definitely think that got splintered. When you look at this race between Sherelle, Helen, and Rebecca, 2 non-black candidates, it was more to say that. But in this situation, I do think Chris Rabb probably got the lion's share of the white vote, especially within Mount Airy, because he always did. If you look at that district that he wins in, Rabb gets the white vote over there in the Northwest. He gets those people out. And so this is a very, interesting dynamic. And I do think, the fact that he won Sherelle's ward does speak volumes. does speak volumes. I mean, even Kenyatta Johnson in Point Breeze, that gentrified area, even in Point Breeze, the council president, his ward, Chris got that too. Chris Rabb got the city council president ward, and he got Sherelle Parker's ward. Checkmate. Checkmate. The white voters definitely showed out. And I know there were some black voters. Definitely did. But I think the white voters are frustrated. They wanted to give certain folks a shot. They wanted to drink the Kool-Aid. This spells trouble. So let's get into it. It's been a blowout. It's been a real blowout here. It's going to be interesting. People are messaging me. They're saying the progressive Dems need to get the fuck together in 2027, meaning that they can't have another Helen Gim, Rebecca Reinhart situation. They say that Sherelle needs to get primaried, and they say they need to unify. That's what I'm hearing from people. They said they need to unify. They said they got a chance to get Sherelle out. That's what they're saying. They're saying that they said that there is now momentum. Think about Mondani and Eric Adams. There's a trend here, people, when it comes to it. And to be very clear, the trend is not to adopt the same type of activity. There was a little bit of that I feel like Rabb's got to work on it, but other progressives can take some notes. I mean, he pulled through, but there's a lot there. So let's get into it. Who do I want to start with? I want to start with Rabb. I'm going to start with why Rabb won. I think Rabb won, for starters, because he didn't play the Helen Gim playbook all the way. That was big. I mean, one, he's a black progressive. The progressives did not play the Helen Gim playbook. I think that was smart. I think, one, a black progressive, which is what I've been always wanting. Never know which one, but I've been saying this for years. I've been consistent. There's a lot of newcomers want to talk shit about me, this, that, blah, blah, blah. But I've always said, when the progressives in Philadelphia run black progressives, they tend to have the most success. Now, there's different types of black progressives, but I think about Isaiah Thomas. I think about Andre Carroll. There's Chris Johnson. There's Sierra McNeil. Like, run them. Rick Krasuski, Jamie Gauthier. Like, Kendra Brooks, Nicholas O'Rourke. Like, the list stacks. Run black progressives. Do they always win? No. But, like, look at Seth Oberman Anderson, right? This guy, 400 to Cindy Bass, super close. Seth was super close. Now he's executive director of Reclaim. Now he might go ahead and run against Cindy again. I mean, why not? Everything's up for grabs. So this is a big deal. So I think they didn't play the Helen Gim playbook. I think that worked in their favor. I think the Helen Gim playbook was, they mix it up a little bit. They were more visible. The public hype and momentum played out. You know what it is too? I think that this is more of a national race, like in the sense of like this is a congressional race. And I always said that I think Helen Gim should have always ran for Congress. I've written about that. You can Google that. I'm not blowing up smoke. I've always said that Helen Gim should have ran for Congress. I think it might be too early to say, but I think in these bigger national type of facing roles, progressives do typically have more success. You look at what happened with Summer Lee, right? This is not a newbie. Pennsylvania did it with Summer Lee. She did it. And so there is an opportunity. That's Allegheny County. It's over there by Pittsburgh. There's an opportunity to do the same here in Philadelphia, but it had to be the right moment. And I always said that I think that Helen Gim would have been better running for Congress because there's a larger swath, and I do think this was the right opportunity, right? So they definitely read the room. I think a lot of the public hype and momentum that they did get definitely kept them up. I also think that there's something that no one talked about, but Chris Rabb put some political skin in the game. He resigned from his state rep seat. And I think whenever a person makes a sacrifice, like when you resign to run, remember Sherelle resigned to run. Well, Rebecca did too. I guess Helen did too. But anytime people put some skin in the game like that, he did not, I think his mindset was, If he wasn't going to win this, he was done. Now, I did hear from sources that there was a possibility that he was going to run against Cindy Bass. We don't even have to have that conversation anymore because now we're seeing a different outcome, right? But he put some skin in the game. He was like, look, this is it. So everybody who was wondering where Rabb was going to go, this was it. And I think a lot of his supporters and people in the Northwest was like, shit, like this has to happen. There was some interesting endorsements. And I'm not even just, I mean, look, the ALC endorsement, cool. Hassan Piker, cool, whatever. I don't think those endorsements really determine this outcome. I think endorsements that was happening on the ground, specifically the one that I think about was that Chris Johnson bait and switch this weekend. That Chris Johnson bait and switch was for me very risky for Chris Johnson to do that. Very risky. But Chris Johnson was in that area. He's in Sherelle's district, in her ward. He was looking at what was going on over there. And he got endorsed by Rabb and Sherelle Parker. Both of them endorsed. The party endorsed him. Working Families reclaimed he was the consensus guy. He didn't have to put his hand on the post. But he did. He rolled the dice. He took a risk. He took a bet. And he made it. He hit a 7. He won the bet, right? And so endorsements like that is interesting because I started seeing flyers go, Chris, I'm voting for Chris. But they was referring to both Chris Rabb and Chris Johnson. So both of them showed up. So to see that alignment that the next state rep would be, would be who is going to be, that speaks volumes. That speaks volumes. When it happens. I mean, that was a momentum. And I think part of that, and what I mean by endorsements, there was a strong ticket. There was a strong ticket. And I think that's the big thing, though, is that they ran on a more unified ticket. I feel like with Helen, there wasn't much of a ticket in 2023. This time around, there was a ticket. There was an actual ticket where you saw progressives in different states. Different parts of the city. Sierra McNeil, she beat the incumbent, Keith Harris, which I interviewed her, and we saw how that played out. That was a moment, Chris Johnson, he had competition, but he was a surefire. But there was a coalition, it was a Black progressive coalition. I want to emphasize that. It was a Black progressive coalition. I think what's so important is that all 5 of the Working Family Party candidates won. Bob Brooks won, Chris Rabb won. This was a momentum. Bob Brooks is the guy who won in the congressional race. The Working Families Party candidates endorsed, there was a sweep. There was a sweep. Sierra, Rabb, Brooks, these people won across the aisle. So there was some momentum with the Working Families Party. CC in Allentown, she also won as well. So there is this, but Bob Brooks is white, but in Philadelphia specifically, they did the work. They did the work. A Black progressive movement. Now, clearly, white leftists is going to be the determining votes. They got to get the white leftists because Black voters are, they're shifting slowly, but there had to be a change. But Black progressives, because the white leftists, they'll get that guilt, that sympathy guilt. Don't do it because in a city this Black, that's the politics. That's the politics. They did it for Helen. They did it for other folks that was non-Black, Nicole Savall. But progressives, Black progressives specifically, said, look, they're the ones working on these campaigns. They needed to see representation within their base. They've gotten behind so many candidates that will get the support of the party and then not win. It was time. And I think they seized the moment. I think this was the moment for them. I think, to me, that coalition, Sierra McNeil, Chris Johnson, Chris Rabb, showing up to these events. Summer Lee coming down. Kendra Brooks, Kingmaker. Kendra Brooks' presence. Nicholas O'Rourke's presence. That is what those people leading that charge visually, even if the crowds weren't always as diverse as one. Seth at Reclaim, if you notice very carefully, their movement, their leadership team, okay, not the voters. The voters, we still got to see those votes. But the face of it was more Black than I've ever seen. And that, I think, made a big difference. The optics were different. And they'll never give people like me credit for that because they hate me because I see everything. I'm going to give you your ups and your downs. They'll never give me that credit for that. But I will take it, part of it. I've been yelling for years. I wrote the pieces. I wrote the op-eds. I did it. You can go look it up. I have said it. That the biggest problem with the progressives in Philadelphia was that they were not pushing enough Black progressives. They weren't. They weren't investing in them as much. They picked one or two. They weren't reading the room. They weren't. This time around, they got serious. They paid attention. They also got a certain type, right? People from these neighborhoods in these areas. Chris Johnson is from the Northwest. Like, he has home roots. You know, I think I mentioned this before, but Pastor Alan Waller, his daughter is married to Chris Johnson's brother. His brother's an alpha man. We're both in the same fraternity, Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. We both alphas. That type of connection, right? Those relationships. And Waller is Mayor Sherrell Parker's minister. So there was a lot. And this is a guy who endorses Chris Rabb. So everything's becoming more intersectional when it comes to these relationships, because it's different when you can go, this is an outsider. Who was that, right? But think about Jamie Gautier from West Philadelphia. There's a strategy. Andre D. Carroll over there in Germantown, from there, right? Paying attention to these people. Kendra Brooks, we know where she's from. Paying attention to this, because that matters too. Sierra is from that area. Paying attention to who's from the area, who can get a different type of voter out to the polls. I think to me, that was Chris Rabb's biggest strength. That was his biggest strength this election cycle. White progressives, though, his left supporters, they gotta chill. They gotta chill. That's gonna be his Achilles heel. The white leftists, they gotta chill, because so much of Rabb, the things that was happening from Seth and Reclaim, the way that he was talking about the election, the conversations that Summer Lee was having, Kendra, they were the more redeeming qualities of that campaign. But the white leftists, y'all gotta listen, vote, donate, but please don't ruin this for Rabb. Please don't ruin this for them. Y'all doing good, because y'all did it with Helen. Y'all ruined that shit for Helen. That's why everybody ran to Rebecca. They was tired of y'all asses. Don't ruin this for Chris. Don't ruin this for Black progressives, because they've been making the case to connect those dots in ways that a lot of y'all don't know how to do. Because I'm going to tell you right now, when Kendra was going out talking to voters, she was talking about kitchen table issues and how progressive policies can address that. Every voter is different. Every message is not the same. And remember, you got to bring people to the base. You just can't ignite the base. You got to bring some people to the base, especially at a time like this, especially with these school closures, especially with all these things going on. There's got to be a different type of conversation, for real. Point blank, the end. We gotta talk about it, right? Because that is something that I've noticed, and I think a lot of people need to really pay attention to what's going on the ground. So we got a lot. We got a lot of ground there. But I think that was Chris Rabb's biggest strengths, was a more diverse coalition, a Black progressive movement. I want to see more Black campaign managers. I want to see more Black candidates, progressive candidates, speak about issues and speak to Philadelphians. I need them more at the front, because that was the rhetoric that people were having. People were, for me, I had concerns based on who was talking. The reality is that we gotta change the image. The image gotta match the momentum. I think that there's a disconnect there. It's getting better, but it got to be a lot better. You got to get the white leftists to stop talking over black voters, because that is, you gotta, they can't be the people that center themselves in black spaces, even within Working Families Party. Because I will tell you, behind the scenes, Rabb is not everybody's favorite progressive. And Rabb is going to have to do some real work, because he got it. But so much of me also thinks he benefited off of the current climate. And every candidate benefits off of different climates. I know Cheryl Parker, I mean, was she a great candidate? She was all right, but I think she benefited at a time where folks were scared about crime. People were scared about, they wanted pragmatic types of, moderate politicians. I mean, that was the Biden movement. The wave got more and more, towards the center than further left. So we see those trends, right? But I think that was Rabb. Now let's get into Dr. Ayla Stanford. Oh my God. Dr. Ayla Stanford, what did you do? What did you do, child? What did you do? What did you do? Okay, because I gotta talk about this. She had no experience in a tight race. No experience. And I'm not talking about political experience, but campaign experience. That was a shitty ass campaign. I can say it. Now we can talk. That was a shitty ass campaign. And it didn't have to be that bad. It really didn't have to be that bad. It did not have to be that bad. But part of the issue was she was not listening to her team. I can say it now. There was a lot, she thought she knew more than everybody. Look, she's a doctor and she's a physician, okay? She's a medical doctor, so she do know some things about health. I will not take that from her. She gave me the Moderna. She vaccinated me, saved my life. Can't take that away from her. When it comes to her and vaccinations and physician work, 10-10, okay? But when it comes to politics, it is night and day. It was night and day. It's just sad. It was just sad to watch that train. It was just a mess the moment she ran. If you go back and listen to my interview with her, and she told me that she had just moved into Chestnut Hill, even though she had a house out there in Montgomery County. That was carpetbagging. And Philadelphians do not take lightly to carpetbaggers. That was carpetbagging. She did not live in this district. She did not live here. Was she from here? Yes. But did she live here? No. And then she moves to Chestnut Hill. That's her prerogative. But you was not here. You literally ran and came in this district to run for this seat. And then framed it like she was here to save somebody, like she was in service, that she was making this. Ma'am, please. You could barely sell that with the situation with the Black Doctors COVID Consortium. And I will tell you this. I know people were making allegations about her getting AIPAC funding and all that. That was the base. Talking to Black voters, okay, that I spoke to in the barbershops and salons up and down West Philly and around, when they started finding out how much money she was making doing that work and what was going on over there, that was what was raising people's eyebrows. It was raising people's eyebrows. That was what got folks going the Black bourgeoisie, they were like the Black political elite. They were like, excuse me, $400,000. Like it was, those were the conversations. Those were the conversations. Progressives, yes, you all were interested in her, but y'all never was interested in her. One of the things I would say about all these elections and campaigns, I wish people would stop acting like the thing that they are hyper-focused on is a thing. You was never going to support her because your guy was in the race. So to try to give people this whole thing, there are different things and messages going to resonate with different people. The Black voters, like I remember I told someone that they said, well, what's the biggest issue with Dr. Ayla Stanford? I said, well, there's people that's alleging that she's got AIPAC money. They said, Aflac? Like I almost hollered. I said, what? They said, Aflac. You said Aflac money, right? I said, Aflac, like the insurance company? They said, yeah, and she in medicine insurance, right? Like healthcare, whatever. I said, no. Aflac is, no. That's not the same insurance. No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about AIPAC. They didn't know what AIPAC was. They did not know. They were like, they did not know. I told them about it. And I think what's important is that I got to tell y'all this as a media professor, as a journalism professor, media literacy is at an all-time low. A lot of people are, first of all, Philadelphia, there's a lot of adult illiteracy in Philadelphia. There's a lot of adult illiteracy. A lot of people in Philadelphia, adults cannot functionally read. Okay, so let's be clear on that part. But media literacy, people understand how to consume media, like really understanding social media, understanding these things. A lot of them are not following all of that kind of stuff. Like PAC money, this, that. You gotta sometimes talk about the things that people can relate to in a certain way. I'm not saying they can't relate to the issues emotionally and personally, but like you say somebody getting APAC funding, that's not, a certain demographic of people are going to hear that, but you got to know what city you're in, right? Going to somebody's door in West Philadelphia and saying she got APAC money, which part of the neighborhood? If you're in the University City area where it's more educated, more homeowners, yeah, they will know about that. But you start going to other certain places that is not politically activist based, folks are not going to know or care. I'm just being real, and that's just a fact. When they start finding out how much money she was making, people thought she was pimping out the hood. That was what people started saying. They would call her a poverty pimp. I was hearing these terms. I'm not saying, I didn't say she is. I'm saying that was words that I saw. That is stuff that was said to me from voters. People felt like she came in these neighborhoods and she was disingenuous about the ways in which she was having wealth and making money. Now, she was already wealthy because she is a physician. She was making her money. But when the story started coming out and people started talking about the money, that's when I noticed people started really question her. The carpet bagging, the conversations, but she ain't even from here. Those are the things. When I was on Word and I interviewed her on the record, this is Black Talk Radio. This is before the conversation about AIPAC even started. The big word on the street was that she was not from the area. Black folks care about that. Black voters care about that. And I think that's why she struggled. Now, she did get some votes, and clearly she took enough votes away from street, right? I do think there was also a certain group of people that were just loyal to her. She was the only Black woman in the race after Morgan Cephas dropped out. And I think there is a group of people that wanted something different, and their different wasn't Chris Rabb different, but their different was, which also I think hurt street. I think that's what it was. I think what I recognized is that voters wanted a political outsider. Either way of the fence. They either wanted, some people said they wanted Stanford. They thought Stanford was the more safer outsider, even though I'm like, but she has no legislative experience. I mean, Chris Rabb served a decade in Harrisburg, right? So it's like, what do you mean? But I think some people felt like that she was more relatable. They said, look, I can go with someone. I want something different. I think she's smart enough to do the job. Okay. But then there's some people that said they wanted something different in Rabb because of the way that he is politically, right? So you got two different spectrums, two different sides, two different sides, but they wanted something different. And I think that was why some people showed up for her. But at the end of the day, I mean, that campaign just was not it on so many ways. The endorsements were desperate and lackluster. She got endorsements from other Congress people in the area, like including Mary Gates Galan, which is her real congressperson, to be honest. I said, of course you endorsed her because you knew she could have had justice. She would have been trying to run for your seat. Dwight Evans, I think him retiring, him kind of being out of the public eye. I mean, I don't even think he came to South at the big election get out. He's been, I just think a lot of people just, I don't think that really did as much. I think that kept her in the conversation, I think she was out of her element. I think throughout the campaign, I was following these mini meltdowns, moments where I just think she took everything so personal. I think there was a sense of entitlement a little bit. Like, I think she felt like because she did all this goodwill with COVID, that was going to translate. And it just didn't. It did not. It just did not come through the way that people thought it would. So I think that really played a major moment for her. So I will say that. Other things. Yeah, I would say she did get some money. She got a lot of money. She even put some of her own money in the race, like $250,000 in the race. And I will say that money will keep you in the conversation, but it will not sustain you. She had all those ads. I knew it was trouble for her when the 314 PAC, which was the main one putting money behind her, pulled their ads a couple of days before the election. That's when I knew something was up. And I wonder if that's why she was winning the early voting, the mail-in voting, because she had this lead initially. She did get the mail-in vote locked in, which was very telling. So that tells me that early voters was looking at those ads and that really played a role. But in a 3-person race, it doesn't qualify you. So that was very telling. That was very, very telling. You know, a lot going on there. So what's next for her? I don't know. I don't know. I think that the Democratic machine is really pissed for her. I think they're going to call her a spoiler. I think they're really she's going to have to go, I don't want to say go away, but she's going to have to lay low. And I think that she took some bruises. Some of the things that she has said on the campaign trail around the transgender community, some of the allegations made from former employees like Tori Owens, who did that special edition episode with me where you all listen. There were some moments, there was some big moments there. I don't know. I don't know what the future spells for her. I think she's not going to run for office again. I think that would be smart. But I'm worried. I am curious about her future contracts with the city and opportunities. I think she's going to have to lay low. She's going to have to lay low, I think. And now Sharif Street, the runner-up. Oh, Sharif, this the cursed child. Harry Potter and the cursed child. He's the cursed child. That guy cannot win for a lick. Just there's a lot going on there. The Democratic Party definitely hurt him. I think the party hurt him. I mean, he had no other choice. He needed the party. Thou cometh, thou taketh away. The party just did not show up. They took too long to really get behind him. People were, it was just real mixy. It was real mixy with him. Cory Booker showing up the day before, my God. Of all the Democrats, y'all would have been better off bringing Hakeem Booker. Not Hakeem Booker. They would have been better off bringing out Hakeem in New York. At least somebody who's actually, in the House of Representatives. Hakeem Jeffries. They would have been better off bringing Hakeem Jeffries out. Something. Maybe call Kamala. Kamala Harris. Maybe call her. Shit. I mean, Governor Shapiro don't like him. They don't get along. So Shapiro stayed out of it, even though privately he did not want Rabb to win, which I also think made even more people go up to the polls. I think this was a gut punch. But there was just too much infighting with the Democratic Party, the establishment. And I just think this is an era where people don't like the establishment. So I don't know. Whether it was Sharif Street or anyone else, I think they were going to lose. I think there's just certain things that I've come to recognize with elections, and I know people don't want to hear this because people want their uniqueness, but I do think sometimes it is a matter of the temperature. There's a lot of temperature here. Rabb was at the right race at the right time at the right moment. And I think the same could have been said for Helen Gim. I think if Helen Gim would have waited and would have ran for Congress, I think she would have won this seat. I think it's about the climate, but also I don't know. I don't know, because Helen is a very different, they would have to, they would have to put another Black progressive. But I think that going to Rabb, and this is about Street, but Rabb specifically, he had a proven track record as a Black progressive. He never lost. He's bucked the hardest against the establishment in that area. I remember covering in 2016. He's always been the one that has been the kryptonite. Sherrell ran so many people against him, and they could not defeat him. So I guess in many ways, if there was anyone to run, if they wasn't going to do Kendra, if they wasn't going to do, they would have to resign to run. If they wasn't going to do Kendra, he was the closest, safest bet. As far as a Black progressive go, I can't think. Jamie Gauthier, maybe, but they didn't want to resign to run. So when you look at the state house has been producing. Summer Lee, I just think there was an opportunity. Another person that could have probably did it was Malcolm Kenyatta. Malcolm Kenyatta could have did it. I'll say that. I think Malcolm Kenyatta could have did it. I think, well, he took that party seat for DNC. He just gave up. He ran for races that was too big for him. But I think Malcolm Kenyatta could have did it. I think he could have did it. Now, if he would have did it, I think someone like Dr. Stanford would have dropped out because he would have had a nice size of the Democratic Party behind him, and the progressives, like Working Families, previously endorsed him, they would have did it. I think Malcolm Kenyatta could have done it, and I think there would have been all the check boxes and all the things. A millennial, he's openly gay. There would have been an interesting level of momentum for him. I think the only person that could have probably pulled it off would have been Malcolm. Looking at how things played out, I think Malcolm could have did it. But outside of that, Chris Rabb did it. But it had to be a Black progressive. Sharif is the establishment, He was the Pennsylvania State Committee chair. His father is Mayor John Street. I mean, he's recognizable. He's lost some races in the past, but I think in many ways, this is the example when name recognition can hurt you. I think the Sherelle Parker endorsement hurt him. I think that was a fatal flaw. When Sherelle endorsed him, I think her endorsement hurt him because she couldn't even secure votes in her ward for him. Council President Kenyatta Johnson, I think that hurt him. He couldn't even win their wards. That spells trouble, y'all. That spells trouble. That dispels trouble. That's not a good look. So that tells me several things about this election, y'all. That says a lot. That says a lot. So I think when I look at the overarching situation, he had a bad team. So the party endorsements, they're very unpopular right now. It's obvious that city council is very unpopular. It's very obvious that Mayor Sherelle Parker is extremely unpopular. And I think that was what really tipped the scales, and that really made the difference, in my opinion, for sure. Also, the ground game. I think there's some fatigue in the party. The muscle wasn't there. The muscle wasn't there. The muscle was not there. And I think there's fatigue. I think he was not an exciting candidate from the establishment. It makes you kind of wonder, would this have been different if they kept Morgan? But Morgan she couldn't get the money. It would have been interesting, I don't know, like if they would have ran, I don't know. Kathy Gilmore Richardson? I think that would have been interesting. If Kathy Gilmore Richardson would have ran, that would have been interesting. That they don't use their stars. Because there are some moderate centrist Democrats that are favorable, right? I think Kathy Gilmore Richardson is someone like that. I think she gets a nice collection of different people. She was the second highest vote getter after Isaiah Thomas. I don't think Isaiah Thomas would have did it because, he's got some progressive support. So they would have, maybe it would have been different, right? But I think Kathy Gilmore Richardson would have been the type of candidate that they should have ran because she would have not had as many enemies. I think Street comes with its own baggage, but I also think he's much older. It's just a certain type of air that I think did not help him. The ground game was shitty. Bob Brady as party chair, he's got to go. He's just got to go. I just think the voting, the precincts, the wards, the engagement, the voter turnout. I mean, that's the thing. The voter turnout. This ain't working. Labor, big unions and labor, man. Ooh. Ryan Boyer, man. I spoke to him on Sunday. I don't know. Labor still is a major key component in elections, but I don't know. I think that stock is taking a little bit of a hit. Massive hit, actually. But also because of the infighting within the Democratic Party. There was too much infighting. The Northwest was divided. And now the Northwest Coalition is done. They're done. They're done. They're done. They don't even have their ward. The mighty 50th ward, they're done. The Northwest Coalition collapsed. They collapsed. They collapsed. They collapsed. And I think that that's going to spell trouble because Sharif needs that Northwest Coalition, but they were fractured. Dwight Evans, blew it, right? Dwight Evans blew it. And then Sherrell went in a different direction. The infighting within the Democratic Party, within the Democratic establishment, definitely made a big difference in this race. That really stands out to me. And they were more unified. They tried to get unified the day before, but it was too late. It was too late. There's too much beef. There's too much division. They're fighting over a lot of bills, issues. There's too much infighting. And they've lost it because that's what happened with the progressives in 2023. There was a lot of infighting. And there's a little bit of fighting still. But there was a lot of infighting. They learned lessons from 2023 that got them on the same track to come up stronger in 2026. Because there was a lot of fighting. I remember they were fighting each other. This election, the fighting was really happening between Ayla and Street's team. I mean, there was, Rabb was just in the middle, his people were, but there was a lot of fighting between Street and Ayla. I just remember with Black voters specifically, there was a lot of fighting on my timeline. And I think it's also important to note that algorithms shape the way people are getting news and seeing things. So when I was telling people about certain issues, for certain Black folks, they're not getting the same, they're not seeing the same things. You follow a lot of progressives, like I follow a nice mix of people, so I see everything on my timeline, which is why the way I talk about this is going to be very different from other people's algorithm. Because if all you follow is a bunch of leftists, or all you follow is a bunch of centrist type of Democrats, Republican, I call them purplish folk, then you're going to be skewed. I'm happy that I have all types of people in my algorithm. I'm seeing all types of things, and that helps me get a better sense of what's going on. But there was a lot of infighting in the Democratic Party, and that did not serve Sharif Street. And also, I just think Sharif Street just there was a stamina that just was not there. Like I say this about Sherrell. Sherrell in 2023 had stamina. There was a robustness. There was she wanted it. She wanted it. Street just, he was cool, he was just chill, And I was just like, you're a little too relaxed. You're a little too relaxed. A little too relaxed. I would say he was also a byproduct of the climate, right? The school closures, the rideshare tax, the fact that he's aligning himself with somebody that a lot of people... I went to the CCP graduation as a professor a couple of weeks ago, and they were booing the mayor before she spoke. She was the commencement speaker, and I heard them booing her in North Philly at the Leah Corps Center at Community College of Philadelphia. That's a big deal because Community College of Philadelphia, the majority of the people that go there are Black. It could, it's not HBCU, but it's a predominantly Black school. And majority of the people there are Philadelphians. Their families were at the Leah Corps Center. That's her type of voters. They were booing her when she was on stage at the beginning of her speech. I was there. I heard it. These are the little details that people skip over because they're so busy trying to follow the big white whale. These are the details. And I said, and look, I've covered it. So I know. She's not very popular. And if you're endorsing someone and you're not popular, they're getting bad will. I think the biggest thing that hurt Sharif Street, it wasn't the allegations of where he was getting his money from. I think the mayor's endorsement hurt him. And I got the data to prove it. The ward did not vote for him. They voted for Rabb. Council president's endorsement. Like literally, she pushed him hard. I think that the mayor's endorsement, The party infighting is what really hurt him in the end. He was second place. There were polls that kept saying it was going to be between Rabb and Ayla, which I knew was some bullshit. I knew that was some bullshit. I knew it was going to be between Rabb and Street. But here we are. So before I wrap up, I got some predictions. What's next, you all ask? What's next? Okay. Well, there's a lot of things, right? But let's how do I want to do this? Because after this, I gotta get me a little drinky drink. I need to relax. This has been a season, man. And I want to just say, before I get into the next steps, I want to thank you all. Y'all know who you are, who's been listening, following this podcast, listening to me on radio, watching me on CBS, DMing me, following me on social media. I just want to say that you all, the listeners, the public, not the surrogates, not the supporters, not the political stands, not the candidates, you all made this worth it. Because these candidates and their campaigns, y'all, they got on my nerves. This was the most annoying campaign I've covered, the most annoying race I've covered, like, ever. But what I appreciate the most was you all showing up, you all reading, you all giving me the tea, you all bringing me to the table. You know, that's the stuff for me. Those are the moments for me. Those are the moments that I'm never going to forget, because you all really showed up and did y'all big one. And so I just want to personally say thank you. I love you. I appreciate y'all. And there's going to be more of this to come, because clearly we're going to have some fun, right? You know, in this political chaos, right? And I love an exciting race. And I want to say this before I get into what's next too. I want to give some thoughts real quick. You know, overall, this was an exciting race to the very end. Rabb won. He earned it. He did. He earned it. Voters had options, which I love, because I think everybody got a chance to put it on the table. Do you want an extreme leftist? Do you want a strong, bold progressive? Do you want a centrist moderate? Or do you want somebody that's floating in between? Voters said they want to go to the extreme left, because if the Republicans and conservatives gonna go extreme right, I guess Democrats say, you know what, you moderates and centrists ain't doing enough for me. I want to see blue MAGA. That's what they call them, blue MAGA. They call them blue MAGA. That's what they're saying. I think voters want to go blue MAGA. You know, they say we want a socialist. We want to see what the socialism is given, because this neo-conservatism, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know about that neo-conservative. We done did too much of that. We need to see what the socialism is giving, is what it's giving, what it sounds like. That's what the energy seems like, right? We done seen Mandani. There's a wave. And we're entering an interesting moment in our history. And to be here to cover it and to be able to be on the ground where it's happening is an honor. So, the future. What does this mean? Immediate stuff, right? Let's look at city council. Let's look at 2027. Let's look at it. This ride share tax ain't happening. It ain't happening. It's not happening. The ride share tax is going to take a hit. The ride share tax is going to take a hit. Period. Like, they can't do this. They will lose more seats. And they know this. Council President Kenyatta Johnson and Mayor Sherrill Parker, we're going to see a serious disunity amongst city council and the mayor's administration, or there's going to have to be some concessions. But you're going to see some people in city council begin to act out. Pay close attention to Nick and Kendra. Pay attention to these other city council members. But I will say this, though. Maybe not so much, because Rue Landau endorsed Sharif Street. So the progressives going to be looking at her a little funny now. You know, Jamie Gautier did not make an endorsement. She kind of stayed out of it. Krasner did too. Right? But Nick and Kendra, they're the only ones in city council that endorse Rabb. The public is in their favor right now. Because even the progressives that were in city council either endorsed Street or did not endorse at all. You know, it's high rolling bets. And some people took some bad bets, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see how that unfolds, those dynamics on council, because now, you know, Isaiah, but he's been moving. He's progressive. He's gotten less progressive through time, I guess. But he endorsed Street, and Isaiah's been playing both sides of the fence. And I think people are going to start to shift on him a little bit. It's getting it's getting dicey. It's getting dicey over there. It's getting hella dicey when it comes to what's going to look like in city council, these relationships. And I've tried to tell people time and time again, the relationships, man, the relationships. I know people say don't bet against the machine, but my goodness. So the relationships in city council is going to be interesting. But what I think is going to happen now is progressives that did not go up for Rabb are going to now lean more left, which means they're not going to compromise as much. And so Council President Kenyatta Johnson's got some work on his tail. He's going to have to do some work because there's going to have to be a new regrouping, a big regroup, because there's some vulnerable people, right? Some people that I think might be vulnerable, potentially, right? Cindy Bass is number one on my list. Cindy Bass, you in trouble. You in danger, girl. Cindy Bass is vulnerable. Seth Anderson Oberman is going to run. He's going to run. I think the Working Families Party will be foolish if they don't run him. Reclaim will be foolish if they don't let him run. But it's going to happen. Seth Anderson Oberman he's going to run, and he was close by 400 votes. That's going to be the race to watch. That district seat. Working Families Party, they're coming. But he's going to run as a Democrat like he did last time. That is a race to watch. Cindy Bass, that's it. They're coming for that district. Y'all better figure it out over there. Okay, next, Kenyatta. I can see, if he can't even get his own person more, I can see somebody in Point Breeze, a progressive in Point Breeze, shooting their shot for against Kenyatta, potentially. He's made some very unpopular decisions. I mean, you think about, the arena, you think about it. That's very much telling. Squilla, I would actually move Squilla number 2. Kenyatta is a possible number 3, but Squilla, that one right there, that's going to be a vulnerable seat. Liz, are you there? Feeler, you going to run? Because that's what the streets are saying. I'm hearing Liz Feeler, this might be your opportunity because Center City District is a lot of white voters. I don't think a black progressive can run in that race. But a white woman like Liz going against Squilla, I can see it. I can see it. I can see a race there. I can see a race for Squilla. Squilla and Cindy Bass, I think, are definitely going to get some smoke. Like I said, Kenyatta Johnson might get a challenger. I don't know if the Working Families Party is going to put too many people up for seats because they're going to have to put some energy. Because the big thing I think that could happen, and I think a case can be made even more so now, is Sherelle Parker getting a challenger. She can't even get her candidates to win her war. Sherelle Parker getting a challenger. A serious challenger. This might be the most contested, this must be the most competitive mayoral race we could see. There could be a serious, formidable challenger against her. I don't know who's going to do it. I don't know. But somebody's going to pop up. I'm not going to put people's names out there. One could say Kendra. Kendra could put up a fight. I don't know if she wants to risk it and resign the run, though. That would be a risk. But Kendra could put up a fight. 2 black women from Philly. They would do it too. She is the left's kingmaker, queenmaker. She is the one. She's the one. If there was ever a time in Philadelphia political history to do it, now is the time. Now will be the only time. The level of unpopularity with the Democratic political machine right now, if there was ever an opportunity to do it, this will be the moment. This would be the moment. I don't think there's ever been a time in recent history where I've seen a situation. This could be the first time in history that we could witness a Democratic mayoral incumbent not hold that seat. It's going to take a lot of money, though, because she has been getting her war chest together. But she's vulnerable. She's very, very vulnerable. This election, this moment has really changed the game. And now that Rabb will be a congressperson, oh my God, the level of political capital that he can get out for whoever that person is on that other side. Y'all, I don't know. Kendra has a lot of cachet of support. It could be a moment, y'all. It could be a moment, because I think that's the only person I can see doing it. I don't know who else would do it. You know, I don't know. I've heard Gautier's name be thrown around. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. But I also just think with Kendra, I don't know. Something about Kendra Brooks just makes me think if there was a person to do it. But you never know. I don't want to. She's never said she's gonna run. I don't know. Anthony Phillips could be potentially vulnerable. Anthony Phillips, and I know Anthony very well. There's a strong chance that Northwest, everybody in that Northwest, Cindy Bass, Anthony Phillips. It's tough. I don't know. I think Anthony could be potentially vulnerable. I can definitely see somebody, you know, he's been with the group. You know, he rode in with her. Sherelle is the person that secured his seat. You know, you with the team, guilty by association. So he could be very vulnerable. He could also be vulnerable. So it's going to be very telling. Legislative wise, city council wise, mayor race next year. Policy wise, like I said, I think that the rideshare tax, I think that's going to take a massive hit. I think that other things down the road, these abatements that might be discussed, a lot of stuff is about to change. I think Bob Brady, if Bob Brady stays on next year, y'all done party. Democrat Party want to lose. Bob got to go. It's time to retire. There's got to be. I think there's enough has been done here. It's got to change. Yeah. That's all I got for now. We're going to see some more things come up. You know, I'll be doing my podcast for Memorial Day weekend and stuff like that. But that's my analysis. That's my results. That's what I got to say. So, you know, enjoy, share, let everybody know what's going on. We're going to see the rest of these results and see how this all plays out. And as always, be well and be best. Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.